Yar! Greetings, I am Tad Larkin, the lore master of Mandalore! And today, I'll be digging through the archives to elaborate on the planet Mandalore. Mandalore is a terrestrial world, the fifth out of 9 planets within the Mandalore system, located in the Mandalore sector of the Outer Rim territories. With an equatorial diameter of 92,000 kilometers, a day on Mandalore lasts about 19 galactic standard hours, while a year on Mandalore lasts about 366 standard days. The planet supports a breathable Type 1 atmosphere, multiple climates, and standard gravity. Primary terrain features on Mandalore consist of jungles, rainforests, small deserts, temperate forests, and vast open grasslands. Several types of flora can be found on Mandalore, such as the Veshok tree, a species of evergreen typically found in the temperate forests of Mandalore's northern hemisphere, the Galactic tree, a long-lived silver-leafed tree, amber ferns, a yellow-hued plant, and vormer blooms, a wildflower common to Mandalore's grassy plains. As for indigenous fauna, mythosaurs, massive carnivorous reptiles, have been hunted to extinction by early settlers of the world. Strills, 6-legged carnivorous mammals, are one of Mandalore's top predators and are often domesticated. Shriek-hawks, predatory avians, are used for clan sigils. Shatuls, medium ruminant mammals, can be found grazing in Veshok forests. Vaveen, small rodents, and Fand-Rals, large legless reptilians, can be found in Mandalore's jungles. No sapient life forms have ever evolved on Mandalore. However, the world would eventually be colonized by Tongs, a bipedal humanoid race hailing from modern-day Coruscant, and since then, other species, predominantly human, have immigrated. Mandalore has no real central government, and instead is ruled by multiple semi-nomadic tribes called clans, and although these clans often bicker and fight one another, they can usually be called to order by a respected individual holding the title of Manda-LORE, and in times of crisis can be united under his or her rule. Only one permanent city exists on Mandalore, Kaldabe, and is often jokingly referred to as the planet's capital, seeing that most of the dealings between Mandalorian clans are settled in the Oyu Bat, the city's oldest cantina/inn. Several smaller settlements have popped up and moved on over the years, including Enserai, Norg-Bral, Brazelin, and Shuror, some of which were settled very near Kaldabe, essentially making them suburbs of the city. Mandalore's primary exports consist of mercenaries from the elite warrior clans that inhabit the planet, starships and vehicles designed and manufactured at Mandal Motors, and Beskar, a unique type of iron only found on Mandalore, and when worked properly can be resistant to lightsabers. The inhabitants of Mandalore are pretty self-sustaining, so the planet usually only imports weapons and raw materials for use in starship and vehicle manufacturing. Mandalore's history is pretty long, so for time-saving purposes and because a lot of events will no doubt be covered in future transmissions in further detail, I'm going to do a bit of condensing. Long ago, an ancient race of warriors, the Tong, were driven from their home world of Coruscant and took to raiding planets in the Outer Rim territories of the galaxy. It wasn't until 7,000 years before the Battle of Yavin 4 that the Tong settled a small terrestrial world in the Outer Rim, calling it Manda-Yame, meaning home of the Mandalore, which became the exonym we know today, Mandalore. These early Mandalorians embarked on great holy wars, or crusades, capturing and subjugating numerous planets to appease their wrathful gods, and eventually they began to worship the art of war itself. The Mandalorian Crusades reached their apex in 3996 BBY, when Mandalore the Indomitable was defeated by the Jedi-turned-Sith Lord Ula Keldroma in single combat over the fate of the Empress Tita system. Keldroma spared Mandalore's life, and the chieftain was bound in servitude to the Sith Lord, and the Mandalorians fought alongside Sith forces against the Galactic Republic during the Great Sith War, up until Mandalore's final defeat at the Battle of Onderon, where remaining Mandalorians retreated back to Mandalore. A new Mandalore, Mandalore the Ultimate, took the title from the late Mandalore the Indomitable by donning his mask, and 20 years later, he unleashed a new wave of crusades from Mandalore, which eventually culminated into the Mandalorian Wars, from 3,976 BBY to 3,960 BBY. Carving out a huge chunk of the galaxy's northwestern quadrant, the Mandalorians nearly brought the Republic to its knees. However, a Jedi named Revan and his fellow Jedi Knights, who forsook the Order's stance of neutrality, destroyed the majority of the Mandalorian fleet at the Battle of Malachor V, the survivors of which scattered across the galaxy. Mandalore and the Mandalorians would later be reunited after the Jedi Civil War by Manda-LORE the Preserver, formerly Canderous Ordo, who helped an amnesiac Revan reclaim his memories and defeat his former compatriot, Darth Malak, while destroying the Star Forge. During these next few centuries, Mandalore would have shifting loyalties. First, to the Republic, as Manda-LORE the Preserver aided them in defeating Darth Nihilus and the Sith Triumvirate. Then, to the Sith Empire, being controlled by a puppet Mandalore installed by the Sith Emperor Vitiate during the Great Galactic War. Under Mandalore the Vindicated, Mandalore sided with the Sith Empire during the Cold War and Galactic War, but was slain in battle, and then succeeded by Mandalore the Avenger, who fought in an uncanny triple alliance with the Republic and Sith Empire against the Eternal Empire of Zakuul. Mandalore, for the most part, stayed out of galactic affairs in the millennia following the Galactic War. However, Mandalore's people played a small role during the New Sith Wars from 2000 to 1000 BBY, where, for the first half of the conflict, allied themselves with the Brotherhood of Darkness, then switching sides to fight alongside the Republic. The end of the New Sith Wars in 1000 BBY and the reformations of the Galactic Republic brought about an unprecedented era of uneasy peace, during which Mandalore ceased to be the galactic power it once was, as the Mandalorians devolved into petty raiders and pirates. Sometime before 60 BBY, a well-respected human male from Concord Dawn named Jaster Muriel took up the title of Manda-LORE and set down a code of ethics to hopefully restore the honor of the Mandalorians as true warriors. The Super Commando Codex discouraged petty piracy and raiding and encouraged the people of Mandalore to instead seek honest mercenary work with off-worlders, something that the Mandalorians were very good at. Rather wishing to continue raiding neighboring planets and harassing any shipping that came through the Mandalore sector, Tor Vizsla was Jaster's greatest opposition, and rallied many Mandalorians to his side, under the fantasy of restoring the Mandalorians to their former glory in the days of the Mandalorian Crusades. Tensions eventually spilled over, and the Mandalorian Civil War raged from 60 BBY to 40 BBY between the true Mandalorians under Jaster Muriel and the Death Watch under Tor Vizsla. However, most of the major engagements of the conflict took place off-world and rarely on Mandalore itself, the final of which took place on Galadran and saw the total destruction of the true Mandalorians, save for Mandalore Jango Fett, and the disbandment of the Death Watch. During the Clone Wars from 22 BBY to 19 BBY, Mandalore as a planet remained unaligned. However, the Mandalorian people openly aided the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the conflict. A rogue advanced recon clone Commando, Alpha Theta 2 Spar, escaped from the cloning facilities on Kamino and ran to Mandalore. Many saw his resemblance to former Mandalore Jango Fett and mistook him as his son, Boba Fett, to which Spar used to his advantage. Recruiting former Death Watch members and true Mandalorians alike, Spar raised a force dubbed the Mandalorian Protectors and attacked the Republic at New Holstis, New Bornalix, Zaja, Null, and Kamino, until finally being defeated at the Battle of Norval II, which only Spar and his trusted lieutenants, Fen Shisa and Toby Dalla, survived. Meanwhile, on Mandalore itself, Kal Skarada and Wallen Bao, former training sergeants for the clone army on Kamino, with the help of the Null-class advanced recon commandos, began setting up a sanctuary on Mandalore, Kyrimera, where any clones of Jango Fett could desert the Grand Army of the Republic and seek a civilian life free from servitude if they so wished. With the end of the Clone Wars and the establishment of the New Order, the Galactic Empire sought to establish a base of operations on Mandalore, and reluctantly, Mandalore Fen Shisa, backed by the major clans, granted the Empire mining rights in exchange for large sums of credits. Eventually, the Empire's grip on Mandalore grew tighter and tighter, as Imperial advisors were placed on the board of directors for Mandal Motors, until eventually the Empire took control over the whole planet completely, stripping Mandalorian citizens of their armor and by extension their culture, and subsequently enslaving them. The Empire justified their enslavement through propaganda, rewriting the histories, making it look like Mandalore was a peaceful place during the time of the Clone Wars. But then, the peaceful Mandalorians were wiped out by a resurgent Death Watch led by a cybernetically enhanced Darth Maul back from the dead.
Attention Imperial citizen, you have access to restricted information. The encryption used for this transmission is not on the pre-approved list of civilian accessible encryptions, and therefore, the Commission for the Preservation of the New Order is now tracking your datapad. Prepare for apprehension by ISB agents closing in on your
While the rest of the galaxy saw this as just due for the Mandalorians' fabricated atrocities against a fictitious peaceful society, Mandalorian citizens toiled in dirty, unventilated mines, and Fen Chisa began building his resistance movement to liberate Mandalore. Without their iconic battle armor that made Mandalorians feared throughout the galaxy, Fen Chisa and his new Mandalorian protectors engaged in guerrilla strikes against slavers and Imperial outposts, and in 3 ABY received unlikely assistance from the Rebel Alliance. With help from Princess Leia Organa, still searching for the bounty hunter Boba Fett that had taken Han Solo earlier that year, Fen Chisa and the Mandalorian protectors were able to liberate Mandalore from the Empire's grasp. The Mandalorian people were finally free, and their traditional Beskar Gam armor and weapons were restored to them. Mandalore Fen Chisa bolstered the strength of the Mandalorian protectors and set about liberating the rest of the Mandalore sector, culminating in the defeat of Grand Admiral Mitlin Tackle and his withdrawal from the sector. While the Mandalorian protectors were off-world aiding the Alliance in a gesture of gratitude, Mandalore and its people started the healing process, getting back into their old ways and habits before their enslavement. When the Yuuzhan Vong invaded the galaxy in 25 ABY, the Mandalorians under Mandalore Boba Fett entered into an uneasy alliance with the belligerent extragalactic invaders. Impressed by the Mandalorians' strict discipline in their warrior culture and astonished at how little industrialized Mandalore actually was compared to the rest of the galaxy, the Yuuzhan Vong agreed to leave Mandalore intact as long as the Mandalorians fought for them. Distrustful of the Yuuzhan Vong and their promise, Boba Fett worked secretly with the New Republic, feeding them vital intel and gathering some of their organic technology for study. The Yuuzhan Vong finally caught on in 29 ABY, and in retaliation proceeded to invade the planet, seeking its total destruction. The Mandalorians, however, were not too keen on that happening, and though the Battle of Mandalore cost nearly 1.5 million Mandalorians their lives, Mandalore held against the invaders. After the Yuuzhan Vong War concluded and the invaders were repelled, Boba Fett shifted his focus to healing Mandalore's wounds sustained in the battle. Large swaths of land were marred with craters, farmlands poisoned, and entire ecosystems were deforested. The land had to be reclaimed. This time period was a time of reconstruction for the rest of the galaxy as well, except Mandalore had it especially hard, since they didn't receive any aid from the newly formed Galactic Alliance because they refused to join it. However, they did get a lucky break when a new vein of Beskar ore was discovered, and a subsequent business partnership with the Verpine of the planet Roche saved Mandalore's economy. During the Second Galactic Civil War, Mandalore remained neutral throughout most of the conflicts. However, Jaina Solo, daughter of Han and Leia Solo, trained on Mandalore with the Mandalorians, to hopefully better prepare herself for her duel with her brother, Jacen Solo, now a deranged Sith Lord who assumed control of the Galactic Alliance. When the Galactic Alliance under Jacen Solo, now Darth Caedus, attacked the Verpine in the Roche system after a business dispute with the planet Mercana turned violent, the Mandalorians were contractually obligated to come to the Verpine's aid, and in an act of revenge, Darth Caedus released a nanovirus on Mandalore, designed to wipe out any descendants of Jango Fett. Luckily for Clan Fett, a majority of them were safe, as, after the Clone Wars, an antidote for the accelerated aging in Fett clones was discovered by Clan Scarada for their clone sanctuary on Mandalore. However, those not inoculated with the antidote, i.e. Boba Fett and his granddaughter, Mirta Gev, were unable to return to Mandalore for a time. Though Mandalore remained staunchly neutral after the Second Galactic Civil War, Mandalorians were often contracted by the Galactic Alliance, especially when former Imperial Admiral Natasi Dalla was elected to Chief of State, as her partnership with Boba Fett had him and his Mandos doing most of her dirty work. A century later, during the Second Imperial Civil War, Mandalore itself remained unaligned in the conflict. However, the Mandalorians were contracted by the Galactic Alliance during the first year of the war. A regime change, when Mandalore Chernin Ordo was betrayed at the Battle of Bodajef and succeeded by Mandalore Yaga Aux, saw an end to the Mandalorians' participation in the conflict, and they subsequently returned to Mandalore. This transmission was suggested by Elite Army Customs. If you have any suggestions for future transmissions, don't be afraid to drop a comment. In the meantime, keep your comm channels open for future transmissions, and don't forget to subscribe. Tad Larkin, out.